It all started with a simple message. She had been thinking about him all day, wondering if he was thinking about her too. It had been weeks since their last conversation, and even though she knew he had a busy schedule, she couldn't shake the feeling that he was avoiding her. She found herself staring at her phone, her finger hovering over the screen, torn between reaching out and giving him space. She wasn't sure if it was her place to contact him first. After all, they had been friends for a long time, and she didn't want to come across as too eager or pushy. Despite her hesitation, she decided to send a simple message, keeping it casual and neutral, just to see how he was doing. She hesitated for a moment before pressing send, and then she waited. Minutes felt like hours as she stared at the screen, waiting for a response. Was he going to reply? Would he ignore her, like he had done before? She found herself second-guessing everything, wondering if she had made the right decision. Suddenly, the phone buzzed. She looked at the screen with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. It was him. He had replied. Relief washed over her, but there was something in his response that felt distant. It wasn't the warm, familiar tone she was used to. Something had changed, and she couldn't quite put her finger on it. She felt a sense of uncertainty creeping in, wondering whether it was too soon to expect more. Should she have waited longer? Had she misread the situation completely? Despite her inner turmoil, she decided to stay calm and wait for his next move, hoping things would become clearer soon. As the days passed, she couldn't stop thinking about their interaction. The more she reflected on it, the more questions began to form in her mind. His response had been polite, yet there was a sense of distance she couldn't ignore. Why did he seem so cold all of a sudden? Had something changed between them? She had always believed their connection was strong, but now she wasn't so sure. What had happened? Was he just busy, or was there something more to it? She replayed their previous conversations in her head, trying to find a clue that could explain his behavior. The silence that followed his text was deafening. She tried not to read too much into it, but it was hard not to. She had hoped their friendship would eventually turn into something more, but now doubts filled her mind. Was she imagining things, or had he actually pulled away? Every time she looked at her phone, there was a sinking feeling in her chest. She found herself questioning whether she had misinterpreted their connection from the start. Had she been too eager, too hopeful? It felt like she was caught in an emotional tug-of-war, torn between wanting clarity and fearing the truth. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. She had put so much emotional energy into this relationship, but now it seemed like it was slipping away without her even knowing why. She realized she had to make a decision. She couldn't keep waiting for something that might never come. But letting go felt impossible. There was a part of her that still held on to the hope that things might work out. If only she could figure out what was really going on. A few days later, she received a message. It wasn't much, just a simple text asking how she was doing. But in that moment, her heart skipped a beat. Could this be the sign she had been waiting for? Maybe he wasn't as distant as she had thought. Maybe he had been busy and now he was reaching out. She quickly replied, trying to keep the conversation light, hoping that he would open up more. The response came almost immediately, and they started talking again, as if nothing had changed. But deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. They exchanged a few more messages throughout the day, but the conversation never really went beyond surface-level topics. She couldn't help but wonder if he was holding back on purpose, or if he was simply not interested in diving deeper into a connection with her. Each time he replied, she carefully analyzed his words, trying to decipher his intentions. Was he just being polite? Or was there something more hidden behind his short replies? She had no answers, only more questions. But as the night went on, something unexpected happened. He sent her a message that seemed more genuine, more personal. He talked about something that had been on his mind recently, and she could sense the vulnerability in his words. In that moment, her doubts faded slightly. Maybe, just maybe, there was something more to this after all. She felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Perhaps there was a chance for them, but only if she could understand his true feelings. But just as quickly as it had appeared, the hope began to waver again. Was it too soon to trust his words? She didn't want to get her hopes up again, only to be disappointed. Yet, she couldn't help but feel that this small moment of connection meant something more than she was allowing herself to believe. As the days passed, her thoughts began to spiral. The hopeful feeling from their last conversation faded, replaced by uncertainty and confusion. She kept thinking about his words, replaying their conversations in her mind, trying to figure out where things stood between them. She didn't want to jump to conclusions, but every little detail seemed to hold so much weight. She noticed that his messages became less frequent again, and the playful tone from before seemed to vanish. When he did reply, it was often with short, distant responses. Her heart sank every time she saw the notification, wondering if she was the only one putting effort into keeping the connection alive. What was he thinking? What had changed since that brief moment of closeness? Was he still interested, or had he simply moved on? The answers she desperately searched for remained out of reach. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something he wasn't telling her. She had hoped for clarity, for an open conversation that would settle her doubts. But instead, she found herself growing more and more uncertain. The situation started to feel like a game where she wasn't sure of the rules or even if she was playing at all. She didn't want to waste time chasing after something that wasn't real, but she couldn't bear the thought of giving up either. The constant back and forth, the push and pull, left her exhausted and emotionally drained. She realized, though, that she couldn't keep waiting for him to make up his mind. She needed to take control of her own emotions and stop relying on his actions to define how she felt. It was time to stop questioning every little thing he did and to start focusing on herself. But even as she made this decision, part of her still clung to the hope that one day he might show up with the answers she longed for. Maybe, just maybe, they would figure it out together. Time passed, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something had to give. The emotional roller coaster was wearing her down, and she knew she needed clarity. She couldn't keep living in a state of confusion, constantly wondering whether he cared or if she was simply chasing something that was never there. One day, she decided to confront the situation head on. She couldn't continue with the uncertainty, and perhaps it was time to ask the hard questions. With a mix of nervousness and determination, she sent him a message, one that was different from all the others. It wasn't playful or ambiguous, it was straightforward. "I need to know where I stand with you." She wrote, "I've been waiting for some sort of clarity, but I can't keep doing this without understanding what's really going on. Do you want this, or should I move on?" She stared at the screen, waiting for his response. It felt like an eternity before the notification popped up. Her heart raced as she read his reply. It was short, but it was clear. He admitted that he wasn't sure about his feelings and didn't want to lead her on. He told her that he needed time to figure things out and that he didn't want to hurt her. For a moment, she felt a rush of relief. The truth, no matter how painful, was better than living in the unknown. At least now, she knew where he stood. But at the same time, she couldn't deny the sting of his words. It was clear that he wasn't as invested as she had hoped. She took a deep breath. As much as it hurt, she knew that she couldn't keep waiting around for someone who wasn't ready to give her the love she deserved. It was time to let go. The days after the conversation were hard, but necessary. She felt a sense of finality that she hadn't had before. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to breathe without constantly analyzing his every word and action. The uncertainty had been lifted, and although the truth wasn't what she had hoped for, it was still better than remaining in the dark. She took the time to focus on herself, rediscovering hobbies and activities she had put aside. She spent time with friends who cared for her, reminding herself of her worth. Slowly, she began to feel stronger, more in control of her emotions. The journey of healing wasn't linear. Some days were easier than others, but with each passing day, she was moving forward. Eventually, she came to realize that the love she was searching for wasn't going to come from someone who couldn't give it to her. The love she needed had to start from within. Months later, she met someone new, someone who didn't make her question every gesture, every word. It wasn't an instant connection, that there was comfort and peace in the way they communicated. She wasn't in a rush, but for the first time, she felt like she was giving her heart a chance to truly heal. Looking back, she felt grateful for the lessons learned. She had loved, hoped, and experienced heartbreak, but ultimately she had gained a deeper understanding of herself. And with that, she had found the courage to move on, knowing that the right love, the love that would truly make her happy, would come when the time was right. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. See you in the next video.